Hi everybody, welcome back to the garden. We have had 4 or 5 frosts so far. The last one was about a week ago. So I thought we should have a look around and not necessarily dwell on what has died, but what has survived so far. We're going to start up here in the upper garden because you can see there is still quite a bit of green. And we do in fact have some vegetables and some flowers still producing in this area right here. Now, the majority of what we have in here are herbs and leafy greens. Things like this do tend to be able to withstand a light frost at least. And the parsley, this whole row here is parsley. Parsley can withstand quite a heavy frost. And I've even seen it overwinter as long as the plants are young when winter hits. Cilantro is another great one, and cilantro does really like the cool weather. So as long as it doesn't get too cold, really hard freeze, we should be able to get a good couple of weeks out of this. Same thing with this little patch of chard. There's a few different varieties of chard and some spinach back here as well. Take a quick break to go get some bird seeds so the chickadees stop dive bombing me. Hello, sweetheart. There you go. Little nuthatch. We do have to take these down every day because we have a raccoon who will destroy them. That's why it's a little bit bent at the top. Okay, where were we? Oh yeah, herbs. Be warned, there are a lot of weeds in these beds because I haven't been out here for a few weeks. But we also have some beet seedlings. Now, these are likely not going to turn into beets at this point. It's too late in the season. And looks like some carrots in there too. But I direct seeded a whole bunch of stuff just to see what would come up. And some of that was this dill, and this dill is definitely big enough to use. These beans got hit by frost, but not enough to damage them. I don't know if we'll get any beans though, but the flowers and leaves are alive and well. And here is another good example. We have these carrots are about 2 weeks older than the other ones, and we have also been enjoying these Asian greens. They have a little bit, not bitter, but a little bit of a spice to them that we really like. So those have been our salad greens. Another bit of carrots back here and some lettuce hiding behind that. So still quite a few things growing in these first couple of rows. And then we come to the snapdragons. Snapdragons are actually hardy enough to completely overwinter in our area, but usually only as small plants. So these are going to come out. I've just been cutting bunches for the house. I'm not selling cut flowers at this point, but it's hard to pull them up when they're looking this nice. This is a wild variety of Rudbeckia that just self-seeded, probably through my compost, and it's right at the end of this row, so I just left it. There is a little bit of frost damage on the end of some of the leaves, but it has not slowed down the blossoms. Now this one was a bit of a surprise, and that is Statice. I think I knew that Statice could withstand a frost, but we've had 4 or 5 good ones, so that's good to know. Some kale back here. We definitely know that that's hardy. We also have some more beets over on this side. These were planted, I think, 6 weeks before the other one, so it looks like we actually have, some beets in there that we can be eating. Now, if you watched me plant this row, these are the Aquilegias or Columbine and Delphiniums, tiny little seedlings that I planted out for next year. But they have grown so well. The Aquilegia is beautiful, and the Delphiniums, as a complete surprise, are flowering. Look at that. It's nice to know that I have a bit of a color variation here. This one looks like it's going to be a dark bluish purple. Look at this one. White. That one's going to be flowering very soon, and most of the other ones are flowering as well. I also almost forgot that I direct seeded some peas back here. So no sign of pods yet, but these are close to 3 feet tall. So they're looking pretty good. So that is the upper garden, probably a little more than half full at this point. Now, a really important point as we walk around and have a look at what is still blooming. Now, a really important thing to consider while we're walking around having a look at what is what has survived and thrived through a handful of frosts already is that these are the types of things we can plant next spring before our last frost date. So the leafy greens and the herbs, snapdragons, these are all things that can thrive in cooler soil temperatures and withstand a few frosts early spring next year. Moving on to the raised bed garden. Hi, Buster. We have our feverfew. 2 varieties of feverfew, and I've just been letting this go. We have the magic lime green, and this was tetra white, I believe. We won't look too closely at the chives. There's almost more weeds than chives in there at this point. Oregano, and you'll find with the perennial herbs, most of them still look just fine. Yes, Buster? Oh, I was too late. This is my first saffron crocus flower. Look at that. I'm too late. It's a little bit too dirty. That is the first saffron of the year. And I think right there might be another flower. So we are starting to bloom. That is fantastic. So saffron crocus blooms in the fall. That is completely normal, and this is I think this would be the 3rd year for these plants now. So we're going to have a closer look at this in an upcoming video, along with planting some more, which clearly I should have done weeks ago. But for now, let's move on. Now the tarragon is still perfectly fine to use. If you can find any good stalks. Most of it is pretty old at this point and is starting to get a little bit tired. And the other beds have been emptied. These beds are going to be planted up with garlic. There's a little bit of thyme and rosemary in that that's going to be moved. But we have 3 beds here that are empty and ready to go. Now along this side here we have the Rebecca. I think I'm going to take some of these inside to dry them. I haven't tried drying Rebecca, but the sunflowers dried very well, so why not? Look at that, isn't that cute? A little accidental bicolor. The ornamental grasses are still looking okay. Even the Lisianthus. Now there's no way we're going to get a second flush of flowers at this point, but it's trying. And look at that. I planted these foxgloves for next year, but that one's jumping the gun a little bit. These are the carnations planted out from last year, and I'm pretty sure this foliage is going to be evergreen. I don't think that's going to go anywhere. The yarrow, of course, looking just fine. And another little patch of ornamental grass that hasn't quite succumbed to the cold yet either. My larkspur soil blocks are settling in really nicely. This is about the perfect stage for these to go into dormancy. So after the fail that I had last year, I'm really happy that I got the timing on these this year. One more thing is that the calendula is also a really frost tolerant plant, and I've seen it continue to bloom until it hits about -4 or 5 degrees Celsius. Sometimes that gets us into December. Let's pop into the greenhouse. It rained last night, so I stuffed these hay bales in here. But if we have a look, we do have some peppers. There are lots of tomatoes and peppers hidden in here. And this is not a heated greenhouse. All I did was shut the door, and that was enough to keep the frost off. And look at this. What is this? This is my pineapple sage in the greenhouse, which we haven't actually used. But I like this flower. I might get one of these for the ornamental bed next year. These young flower spikes hang down, and then as they start to bloom, they stick straight upright. I can't wait to see what the flowers on these look like. I think we need to take a moment to appreciate this tree. I love this maple tree. Funny enough though, that maple tree right behind it is still perfectly green. We have just a few more perennial herbs. This is winter savory. Same flavor as summer savory, but it's evergreen. This is going to stay just like this all throughout the winter. I have some chocolate mint, the sage, the lavender. Look at that, the lavender putting on a second flush of blooms. We have a few different varieties of thyme. I've shown those before. so we won't get into detail with these. And the different oreganos over there. All of those are just doing fine. And Buster. Buster only survived the frost because he was inside curled up on a cozy blankie. I have been really busy clearing out these beds to get ready for bulb planting. There's going to be a lot of that. But I have left some leeks. Leeks are very hardy, and these were only planted in July, so they're really small, but the flavor is there. So we'll be using these all the way up until Christmas likely, as long as the ground doesn't freeze solid and I can still get them out. Now you might remember that this is where I had my bells of Ireland, and I had let it go to seed, and there are some seedlings. There's maybe half a dozen of these in this bed. There's a bigger one. The rest of that is cilantro. We're going to leave those in here to see if they survive the winter. The last thing to note in here is the dahlia bed. Now this did not survive on its own accord. I covered these with 2 layers of good frost cloth because there are so many buds. And we only had frost for about a week to 10 days or so, and the temperatures have been a lot higher since. So I've been cutting blooms just to enjoy in the house. I've been drying some. And since I was late planting these out, I wanted to give the plants an extra few weeks just to make sure that I had good tuber development to store for the winter. And look at that. Even this plant here is one that completely broke off during the hurricane, but look at all these new shoots that have come up just in the last couple of weeks. So that's been since mid-September. So we've been enjoying these, but their days are numbered. We'll likely be digging them out within about 2 weeks. Now this bed is full of daffodils, but before I planted those last year, it had gladiolas, and it seems that I didn't quite get them all. There are 5 gladioli growing in here, which are not supposed to be hardy, and one of them is even flowering. Now I know I did not grow glads this year, but next year I definitely will. So a little bit of a garden update for you on this beautiful sunny fall day. I'm not even really sure that I need this vest. I don't think it's quite that cold, but there's a bit of a nip in the wind. We've just been enjoying the beautiful fall colors. We're finally getting around to fixing the arbor, and this weekend, as I'm talking to you now, it's Friday. This weekend I have to unbox and plant somewhere in the 12 to 1500 bulbs range. That includes tulips, some daffodils, a few other things I think, as well as the rest of my saffron. So be sure to tune back in a couple of days, and until then, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.